what is the purpose of the Begode ET Max? Are you the most performance-oriented wheel ever made? But I thought you were just an electric unicycle. That's a fair point. So here it is, ladies and gentlemen. The fastest set of bongo drums in the world. Begode, you never cease to amaze me. Wrong way. And this video is brought to you by My E-Wheel. Yes, we are working together with My E-Wheel again. So if you want to get a wheel in Europe, feel free to check out their site. Use my coupon code WRONGWAY to get a discount, and I also get a little bit of a kickback from those orders. And I'm super happy to be working with them together again. Now currently they don't have this particular wheel for sale on their site, but they are running a Blue November sale with lots of discounts. So if you find anything that tickles your pickle, then check it out in the link below. So I've had this wheel already for a while, and I've put around 2,000 kilometers on the clock, and I'll tell you what went wrong with it in that time, and I'll tell you what is right about this wheel. With that said, this wheel was directly provided to me by Begode for me to keep, so this is my wheel, and you know, I just need to say it as a disclaimer at the beginning of those videos. Nevertheless, I'll tell you everything that I liked and disliked about this wheel. So when I was initially contacted by Begode to check out the ET Max, I was actually pretty reluctant to test it out. For me, it seemed like it was another wheel that weighs a ton. Well, in this case, it's about 48 kilograms. It will be, you know, unwieldy and difficult to ride. But in the end, it turned out to be very different from that, actually. But in some regards, also, yes, it's a big, hefty wheel. Let's go. I feel like, come on. Oh my god, this has so much torque. Okay, actually, no. All right. I guess what I was most surprised by in terms of the ET Max is that it's so freaking smooth and stable. This is by far the smoothest and most, you know, stable wheel I've ever tested. It looks like a temple from the side just because it's so tall and the battery cases are so narrow. It has an 18-inch wheel and 130 millimeters of suspension travel. And let me tell you, if there's one wheel where I can go super fast off-road, it's this one actually. Especially compared with wheels that have less suspension travel, like the Sherman L, the Veteran Lynx, the Patton, the V14, pretty much the whole bunch except for the Kingsong S22. This wheel is on a different level of smooth. And the acceleration, oh my god, just keeps it going! And it's also extremely smooth. Like, I can't even describe it to you. It uses a new motor, a tile magnet C38. It's a heavy boy, it's a heavy chunker, and it takes some force to, you know, get this thing going, but once it goes, I mean, could this be the smoothest riding experience of any vehicle ever? It's pretty extraordinary. All right. But Adam, you said that something went wrong with this wheel, and yeah, I feel like Begode peaked with the design of the Begode Extreme, and that wheel was easy to work on, reliable, and except for some issues that I had with it, check out my Begode Extreme review for that, it was very well made, and I loved the construction of it. With the ET Max, it got a bit more complicated. We have more screws, more adapters, more things to go wrong, and sadly no more seat. But hey, if you want to have the fastest Bongo set, the top needs to be plastic. And if you train enough on kettlebells, your ass will become the seat, so you won't mind the plastic all that much anymore. But when it comes to the actual issues on the wheel, there were just some, I would say, minor inconveniences during the 2,000 kilometers that I did on the ET Max. First up, wheels by Begode just are very creaky out of the box. And I do really hate that. They need to loop up the linkage mechanism, because most of the time this is the issue. It just creaks and squeaks the first time you go into off-road, and it's not a big issue. You just need to, loop up the suspension linkages. But if it's not done out of the box, you will need to disassemble the wheel and do the maintenance yourself. Quite annoying, but not as hard to do if you like tinkering. If you don't like tinkering, well, let's wait for some sort of update by Begode to make the wheels not creaky out of the box, because come on, not everyone wants to just disassemble a wheel right from the get-go. The second issue I had was that when I started riding the wheel, there was initially some sort of bug or problem with the software that made the pedals go up and not allow me to ride, which is a safety mechanism, but everything about the battery was all right. So I had this issue maybe once or twice, then I updated the software, and since then I didn't have any sort of tilt back in that regard. But I still have the BMS light blinking all the time. Now, Begode was telling me that, no, unless it's not beeping, it's fine, like, don't worry about it. But none of my other Begode wheels are constantly blinking. So I think it's some sort of, electronic software thing that they need to figure out. It doesn't really affect my riding. It's just like this small bit of concern. Like, you don't want to have a LED constantly blinking, It's just like, it doesn't make you feel safe. The third and last issue I've had is that I had a random cutout while going up a curb on this wheel. It just happened once. It was so random, never happened again. Begode was super cautious about that, and they sent me a spare motherboard right away. And since then, no issues at all. Just like weird to have it just like once, and what happened, and like, why is that? And I never got an explanation. But in the end, the wheel works, and it's fine. And when it comes to issues on it, did I have anything else? Like, the Velcro wasn't sticking so well on the original pads, but other than that, no. Surprising. And I have to underline that throughout the whole testing period of this wheel, Begode is extremely good at communicating with creators and riders. While they do make many changes to their wheels, and some are good, some are bad, I would say that this is the brand that is the most connected to the rider community, which is amazing. And at this point, while it is important for me to have a good, reliable wheel, communication is amazing. And this is why I don't work with Nosfit or with Veteran at this point, because at some point I just get tired of people ignoring me or saying they don't work with creators. All right, our community, our channel, myself, we bring a lot of good things into the UC realm, and when companies don't respect that and they don't value that, then I don't think that it's necessary to work with such companies. But what's your opinion on that? Let me know in the comments. Did you know that if you push just the right way, you can like climb 90-degree inclines with the wheel? grip. There it is. So I would say that the ownership of the ET Max was relatively hassle-free for me, except for the couple DIY, intense stuff that I needed to do. And that is also just because it's, as said, pretty complicated to work on. There's tons of screws for these front bumpers, which are plastic. Oh, those are actually drums too. This wheel never ceases to amaze me. So with that said, let's focus a little bit who this wheel is designed for. And I feel like the ET Max is fulfilling a pretty specific niche, a bit of a similar niche compared to the Emotion V13. First of all, I wouldn't say that this wheel is the best wheel for lighter riders. Especially heavier riders will benefit from this wheel because, well, they are heavier and they can use this additional extreme torque that this wheel has. This might just be the most powerful wheel ever made, with top speeds reaching up to 100 kilometers an hour, extreme torque, and well, therefore extreme acceleration. But due to its weight at 48 or like 50 kilograms, it won't be easy for you to accelerate and brake on it. Although with that said, it's extremely well balanced. This is also not a off-road oriented wheel, although with the bigger travel it can do off-road, but with the bigger weight I wouldn't say that it is so maneuverable and nice to do jumps on, inclines on, as for example the Begode X-Way, Begode Blitz, or even the Veteran Lynx. Now with that said, because it has the battery cases going so low and they are pretty close to the ground when the suspension uses its maximum travel, it is just so planted. And putting a off-road tire on it is a little bit sacrilegious, but I wanted to test it out for you guys to see if changing a tire would make this wheel off-road ready, and no, it doesn't. With that said, I did do a lap on a single track course, both on the Lynx and the ET Max, and the ET Max had a time of around 22 minutes and the Lynx about 20 and a half or 21 minutes. So not big difference actually, especially that I was more tired on the ET Max. So even if it would feel slow just due to the bigger suspension travel, it's amazing. But it was a well-kept single track. Anything more hardcore, it could be a bit difficult. Like this hill up there, probably we won't get up there. But we'll try. I feel like, come on. Oh my God, this has so much torque. Okay, actually, no. All right. I didn't expect that. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Oh, come on, you can do it. All right. But the off-road tire, this is the CST C186, just works a lot better with sand and some muddy scenarios, so that's why I pretty much put it onto all of my wheels. Probably in the future maybe I'll use the Shinko 241. With that said, for the street it is amazing. Bit of a weird angle. I tried this wheel with both the 900-pound shock and the 1,300-pound shock, and the suspension works best for me actually with the lighter spring, and that's probably the first time this has happened ever that I want a lighter spring on a wheel. And the reason for that is that, number one, the suspension is very adjustable, and number two, it uses a longer damper compared to prior Begode models. So let me show you how you can adjust the suspension. And no, it is not a suspension like in prior Begode wheels. Check this out. It moves around and it's pretty smooth actually. See? Pretty amazing. So let's see about those suspension settings, and all of them are here in the rear. Number one, it's the new DS200 shock by Begode, which is sort of has a double dampening or something. They make their shocks in-house, and while, you know, electric unicycle shocks do need a different spec compared to bicycle shocks, there's like somewhere in between, I guess, motorcycle and bicycle, I would still advise Begode to use a off-the-shelf product, perhaps like Fast Ace, or at least cooperate with a shock manufacturer, because it's not easy to make a shock. And judging from their air shocks, it's been a pretty big struggle to use those. They just leak air pretty quickly. This one hasn't been a problem for me so far. With that said, let's check out the settings here. First of all, here you can add pressure to the negative chamber, and the more pressure you have here, the stronger the effect of compression or rebound will be. I'm not actually really sure like how it works for 100%, but I just put like 50 to 75 psi here. I think the max is 100. Now the left knob is for compression. So if you want to do jumps, if you do some more hardcore off-road trails, you crank it up, and then suspension becomes very stiff, and that works very well. And then if you screw it out, really love the fact that you don't need tools for it, it becomes quite soft. The right knob is for rebound, and I typically have it pretty much all the way in because I don't like the wheel clunking. So if I have it pretty much all the way in, it goes up slowly, the suspension. Maybe I can do it even slower. Check this out. It's still pretty quick. I guess it goes up very slowly. Boom. Okay, now it's fully up. And then if you crank it out, then there's the typical Begode clunk that I don't like. Maybe they can fix it someday, that the wheel is just clunking, and it is also acoustically, sonically louder because of the bongo drum on the top. Now there is a third way to adjust the suspension, and that is probably a little less talked about, and for that I need to change the angle. Then this is a tool that comes, or should come, with your Begode ET Max, and here you can turn this clockwise or anti-clockwise to adjust preload. And at this point I have quite a bit of preload on that shock. So what that does is the more preload you have, the higher you will stand on the electric unicycle once you step on it, and you don't want to have too much sag. Without much preload, I had too much sag on the shock, and the pedals would be too low, or actually the battery cases itself. And the thing that I typically do with this new DS200 shock is I crank up the compression, I crank up the preload, and this is actually working better for me than the 1300-pound spring on the DS200 shock. Alright, so what about the functionality of this wheel? Well, definitely it's not the easiest to put up, 48 kilograms, but it does have a lift switch button, which is located underneath here, very comfortable, and next to it you have the power on and off button and the light switch. Turn on the light, make it blink, and it also dims down when you go slow. This light is definitely not sufficient for the speeds that this wheel is, capable of doing, but for most nighttime rides it's enough. I'm waiting for the day when we will have both a floodlight and a light with a cutoff beam installed to electric unicycles to combine the best of both worlds. If you go off-road, you use the floodlight. If you go on the street, you use the light with a cutoff beam. Right next to it we also have a charge port. It's a GX20-3. I would still prefer a XT60 plug, but hey, that's what we have on electric unicycles. It has a nice screw-on cap, so it doesn't go anywhere. You just need to remember to put it back on once you finish charging. The max charging rate on this wheel is 20 amps, so super quick. I would just suggest to you to use a pit zoom charger if you have the funds for it. So just as a size comparison, well, this one is a bit further away, so yeah, it's much smaller. The pit zoom charger, look how bulky this thing is, huge. And now it is actually charging at 5 amps, you can see here. Up to 14 amps with this small charger. And check out how loud it will be with this charger compared to this one. So plugging it out, boom. So yeah, that's how loud it is without the pit zoom on. Not the worst, but very noticeable. But at the same time also pretty quick at 5 amps at 168 volts. So about, 3 hours for a full charge, around that ballpark. So pretty quick, but loud, big, and bulky, and quite heavy too. So pit zoom is the way to go. Use my coupon code WRONGWAY if you want to purchase anything from them. Oh, the light is also height adjustable, like a little bit, not the most amount, but you can do it. In the front we also have LEDs. You don't see them so well at this point. Maybe you can see now. Boom. And they are there. They look very cool in the night, and in general I think this is one of the best looking wheels ever made. It looks so sexy. It looks so like nice, and especially with the stock pads it looked even better. But in the end I went for the Grizzly set with a nylon fairing plate, just because yeah, this just gives me a lot more performance and control over the wheel. This is actually a brake pad and acceleration pad by Grizzly. In the front area, I also mentioned that before, we have some plastic pieces here. It's not a durable nylon like we have on Veteran, so this will probably break sooner than the things on Veteran. And I would say that in general, this wheel is not as sturdily built when it comes to, you know, falling and braking, because while we have CNC parts, those can bend, those can break, and it's pretty expensive to replace them. I would prefer nylon or nylon reinforced plastic in that regard, but it looks really cool. Like it's a very cool looking wheel. And at the same time, on the top, you just have this plastic, one layer above the motherboard, not too like at Veteran. I hope we'll see improvement at Begode with that in the future. The taillight is not too strong. It's pretty much, yeah, we need good taillights at Begode. Those are not good taillights. When it comes to trolley handle, it's like this. It's not the worst actually, and I've put my full face helmet into this hole sort of to use it so it doesn't go down by itself. But yeah, it could be better if it would be locking in place on the top. I also put some Velcro here on the bottom because it kept like clonking. It still does that if you go downstairs. So yeah, you need to work on your noise a little bit, Begode. The side panel of the wheel is a bit short, that's why I use the fairing plate, but the kickstand is very nice. It's high up, and it's not in the way when you're pushing the wheel around. It's a nice size, and yeah, the kickstand is really cool. In the same area we have a mudguard, longer and also made out of metal, but why does it have holes? This is really pointless. Don't make holes into mudguards, Begode. And the mudguard also extends in the front. Kind of nice actually. Riding in the rain wasn't the biggest issue with this wheel, although it does get pretty dirty, as you can see. When it comes to the pedals, those are the Begode flagship pedals. I really love them. Those are the best pedals in the game. Height adjustment, angle adjustment, and the height adjustment is like maybe 4 centimeters, really adjustable. And on the top we have the display, which is super huge, readable. It shows you the battery state, the temperature of the main board, the total mileage. I have just 700 kilometers because I did 700 on this board and about, I think, 1,000 on the other one. But yeah, super readable, nice display, and of course you have all of the app features as well. The app is what you usually get at Begode with you know, all of the settings. This is the most important part. Just turn off level 2 alarms, otherwise if you buy the wheel it will keep on beeping. You select your modes here: strong, medium, soft. Top speed, I have my power alarm at 70% just because I don't want to die. I don't want to put it too hard. It's essentially the power limit when you go high speed. You can add field weakening, then you can go faster without beeps. Actually, I might turn that on. And you can adjust the angle when it cuts off sideways. When the wheel turns off, if it goes to the side. And I have to say, this works a lot better, I feel like, than at Veteran, because it doesn't do like those weird spinneroos all that much. Then you can adjust the pedal turning angle, which is the amazingest setting ever made. So the wheel will actually go up with the pedals or down if you make a turn. This is still the only company that does that. It's been a year or even more since that. You can adjust the pedal angle, and here I typically do it even at 2 or 3 because it feels like the pedals go slightly up when you go at high speed. So I feel like Begode might need to work on the software a little bit more because I feel that the wheel is a little bit floaty, but not too bad. Still a lot better of a pedal feel, in my opinion, than at Veteran. Then you have the modes. The race mode is for essentially, well, racing, but it has less torque, so I never really put it on, especially at low speeds. You can set up the top speed, you can set up a beep for the maximum speed, and there's also a LED setting. I don't know actually if it changes anything. The volume setting of the beeper, you can calibrate the wheel, and this is what I would suggest to do if you always, you know, need to change the horizontal adjustment because it resets every time you turn off the wheel. This needs to change. Then I would suggest you just to calibrate the wheel in a different angle altogether. I always need to change the angle. If I go on street, I want to have it a little bit flat or like even leaning forward, but if I go jump, I want to have it leaning back. So For me, it's, you know, I'll just always need to play with the setting anyway. And then you also have your battery information. This is a smart BMS. This is what needs to be here. And yeah, it's balancing nicely. The voltages are nice. As said, the only thing is that it keeps on showing me this weird blinking pattern on the cover of the wheel. All right, but let's conclude it all with taking the price into account, which is about $3,700 US at eWheels, which is also a electric unicycle distributor that I work with. And with that in mind, the ET Max is actually cheaper than both the Lynx and of course the Veteran Sherman L, and the Sherman L is just slightly lighter than this. So with that in mind, this is definitely not a wheel for me. I know that this is a wheel designed mainly for the street, and I feel like it also works best with the stock street tire that was installed on it. I had the stock 90/90 tire on it, and it felt a lot more nimble, a bit more planted, better in general for, you know, the purpose of this electric unicycle. But I don't really ride solely on the street, and I like to use, you know, different sorts of surfaces. So for the slightly higher price of, I know, $3,800, the Lynx will be a more durable choice and a more universal choice. The same thing applies to the wheels that are even at Begode. The X-Way is different in that regard, that it's more off-road oriented, and the Blitz, even though as they market it as a street wheel, I also think that it's way better for off-road. This is really just a street cruiser, but at the same time, it doesn't have so much range. I get around 100 kilometers on it, and if you go fast, it will have even less of it. So if you actually want to have a wheel designed for long-range cruising, I would still probably go with the Sherman L or a different wheel at Begode or Extreme Bull that have just more battery, because 3,000 watt hours, that's not a lot. I just get slightly more range on this than the V13, which is the closest competitor, I would say, in the realm of the fastest bongo drum in the world. But with that in mind, it is cheaper than pretty much most of the competitors in the fast, you know, electric unicycle league. And at the same time, it's also very stable and maneuverable at lower speeds. So I was using this wheel very often. As you can see, it just stands by its own. That's how stable it is. For going to make errands, especially ones that are a bit further away, but not as far away that I would need to bring a charger with me. But, you know, for most cases, 100 kilometers per day is enough. But if you want to go on group rides, no, this wheel will be not enough, and probably a EX30 or even a EX20S, which is discounted now at my eWheel, will be probably a better choice for it. So if I can sum up this wheel, it is a very niche wheel, I would say. It's a niche because it's too heavy to be a race wheel, and it's has a too small battery for its weight. It has the battery cases too low for it being an off-road wheel, and it's also, in my opinion, too heavy for it being an off-road wheel. It has amazing suspension travel, and it's the most comfortable wheel for, you know, going long distance, but at the same time, it doesn't have the same range as a less comfortable wheel with a bigger battery. So for long distances also, I would prefer a different wheel. This is just sort of to go fast, comfortable, but not far. So if that's anything that floats your boat, you're a heavier rider, you don't need the biggest amount of range, and you don't want to pay the biggest buck for a extreme performance wheel, then this is it. But if you want to go in any direction in terms of usability and value for long-range cruising or for more off-road oriented riding, I would look elsewhere. And with that said, I'm still very impressed with what Begode managed to do here. Also, the waterproofing on this wheel, it has an IP rating, and it looks like it would be very good for rainy use. I used it in the rain, and it was fine. And even the motor is better sealed now. The towel magnets work great. It's an extremely pleasurable experience, and every time I go out on it, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This has so much power, so much oomph, so much torque. But in the end, it's definitely not a wheel for me. If it is one for you, well, let me know in the comments if you have one. But if you're still here, leave a like on the video, subscribe to see more content like this. I'll see you in the next video. See you soon.